What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/IDontWorkHereLady. This story's called IDontWorkHereLady. This happened years ago. My dad's cousin, Robert, was visiting from Scotland for the first time. We live in Canada. He had been taking turns staying at each of my dad's siblings that lived nearby. That day, he was staying with my parents. We had had a nice lunch together at their home, but for dinner, we were going out to a nice restaurant. My mother, father, his cousin, my little bro and I, 2 of my aunts, and 2 of my uncles, so a pretty big party. We had called ahead to get a reservation. The whole family had dressed nicely since we knew we were going somewhere nice for this special occasion. The restaurant where we were going was not the #1 restaurant in the city, but it was pretty high-end. One of my personal favorites to eat in the city. The whole staff was dressed nicely, but the manager and sommelier both wore suits. We got to the restaurant maybe 15 minutes early, but our table was already ready, so we were seated right away. I was friends with the sommelier in particular and knew most of the staff pretty well, so I was talking to him a bit. We chatted about what wine they had gotten in recently. They had picked up a large collection from an estate sale that I hadn't been able to attend myself. I ordered several bottles from this new collection for the table, then went to seat myself. The dinner rush was just starting as our waiter took our orders. Robert got up and headed for the bathroom, which our server pointed out for him. As he was coming back around the corner toward our table, a skinny young guy in a tacky suit snapped his fingers at Robert, who noticed and looked at him surprised and sort of offended. The man was loud, very needlessly loud. This was a nice place. People were talking in muted tones. Rude young man says,
Hey, you! Yes, you! We're ready to order.
"Beg pardon, laddie. What are you going on about?" Robert's accent was thick as oatmeal.
My order! Take my order, we're ready!
It was at this moment Robert realized the rude young man thought he worked at the restaurant. "I don't work here, laddie." The rude young man was having none of this. His immediate anger was clearly apparent as he stood up. This situation was getting out of hand. I and my little bro both got up from the table to go back up Robert. We got there almost the same time as the manager. The rude young man, now shouting,
You can't treat me like this! Don't you know who I am?
Robert was recoiling. Having heard so much about Canadian hospitality, he was floored by this rude young man. Floor manager stepped between Robert and his aggressor as Robert was stepping back and the rude young man. Floor manager says,
Sir, I don't know who you think you are, but your behavior is unacceptable. I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
I demand you fire the server! He was very rude! You can't treat me like this, my dad owns this place! I'll have your job. I'll have all of your jobs.
This guy was so loud that the chef had to come out to see what was the matter. Dressed in black with a black heavy leather apron, heavy leather knife sheaths on each hip hung on a belt around his waist, tattoos all over his arms and neck, muscular and a little over 6 feet tall. Chef was quite an imposing figure, particularly with the angry look on his face. At this point, the whole restaurant was staring at the rude young man. Chef, in an aggressive, but not overly loud, yet commanding voice.
This is over. You're out of here. Get up and get out. Now!
Chef's command allowed no rebuke. The skinny little pissant looked terrified. He and his lady friends both got up looking horrified and rushed out of the hospital. I thought he was going to make another comment as he fled, but he just scurried away. Several people cheered. Several others clapped as Chef retreated back to the kitchen. The excitement over, we ended up having a great rest of our meal. The floor manager ended up comping the whole meal, nearly 200 grand. Both my dad and I really wanted to pay, but he just refused to take our cards. So we ended up just leaving a big pile of cash on the table when we left. The following week, when I went back to the place with a friend, the sommelier was just itching to dish the news. Turned out the rude young man's dad had indeed owned the restaurant. Part owner. He was a wealthy local landowner, businessman, and restaurateur. Unfortunately for that little pissant, his father had not been on his side at all when he tried to get everyone fired. Much to his dismay, his father instead took away his trust fund, the penthouse he was living in, and his car. Kid ended up having to get a job for the first time in his life. Don't you guys think it's a beautiful thing when a kid with a Malfoy complex gets shown his place? Because I do. Oh, and also, sorry for that Scottish accent. This story's called Bookstores and Angry Old People. I go to Indigo, a Canadian bookstore chain, very often to pick up some books to read, obviously. One day, I was looking at books to get, and this older lady comes literally bolting at me. It almost seemed like she was going to tackle me. She takes a quick stop right in front of me, stares at me, then bolts, and takes a sharp turn down a different aisle. I just looked at some random lady, and we had a laugh, then continued browsing. I was in the crime section, which is just a small aisle, then there's an entire corner with the fiction books in the back of the store, which is where the lady ran off toward. I went back there to look at different books. I walk around the corner and see this lady, and I am not joking when I say this, pull out a freaking white cane, like the ones that fold up that blind people use, and unfolds it and begins to knock a crap ton of books down off the top shelves. She did not look like she was attempting to get a book. She looked like she was intending to make a mess. She then looks at me and noticed I saw her do this. Then this is where everything went downhill with her.
These books, they fell all over me. Do you work here? Did you stock these shelves?
I laugh nervously because I don't even know what I just saw. No, I wish I worked here. I love this place.
If you lie to me again, you won't see the end of me. I'll be here every day and night waiting for you so I can give you more hell for the awful job you did stocking the shelving.
I mean, okay. I'm here like once a month at least, so if you want. But I mean it. I wish I worked here, but I don't.
I'm tired of you stupid kids doing your job in a lazy manner than not being held accountable for the problems that come with their horrible duties.
Okay, I'm tired too. I'm a cashier at my company name, so if you want to pop by for proof I'm not lying, I work Mondays, Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays.
I'm going to get you fired. You don't treat your elders like this.
Then a worker hears me laughing dramatically at this old lady whose face is so red from me catching her do this. I see the worker and just start exposing her. Well, you should have thought about how you'd like to be treated before I caught you pulling the books onto yourself.
Ma'am, this young lady was throwing books at me. She reached on the top shelf and threw them at me.
The worker looked at me and then the shelf. I'm 5'3", okay? The top shelf is like 7 to 8 feet high. Worker literally laughed.
I'll be back in a few seconds.
She walked around the corner toward this little ledge that they have that looks off to the rest of the store, so she was still in earshot of us. She left for maybe 20 minutes. I continued to look at books while she called her husband to tell him how I'm going to be fired from both of my jobs when I only have one. The worker comes back with her manager.
Ma'am, you gotta get going. We have a camera right there to point at cameras, and we saw you pulling the books down.
I don't know what you're trying to do, but worker gets rudely interrupted.
Oh my goodness, is this man the manager? That girl over there? You need to fire her.
She cries in fear of being exposed. She was actually shaking too. I could see her hands shaking so much. I think she thought she was going to be arrested or something. I don't know.
No, she doesn't even work here. And she's dealt with you pretty well, clearly. I didn't hear any yelling coming from her. Only you. So please, if you will.
She left screaming and yelling, still going on about getting me fired from both of my jobs. Once again, I only have one. I knew something was up with that lady when she started to bolt toward me in the store. But yeah, I went back the next day hoping for a scream of the day, but she didn't show up. Makes me super sad. FYI, didn't get the job at the store. Manager led me on. Okay, so that story made for some pretty interesting visuals. Honestly, the whole old lady rushing at that girl, stopping and staring at her, then running back around the shelf thing, that's nightmare fuel. Like, that is straight up horror movie footage. I don't know, like, horror movies usually don't scare me, like, at all, because, I don't know, the effects and stuff like that, because I know it's fake, so it's just funny. However, stuff like that, that gives me the heebie-jeebies, man. This story's called Lady Mistakes Me for My Friend's Babysitter. I'm not sure if this counts, but hey, why not? This is one of many stories. Me and my friend were about 11 or 12 at the time. I was really tall for my age, and was often mistaken for a 14 or 15-year-old due to my manner of speaking and my deep voice. We all went to a strict school, where we were taught to respect our elders no matter what. Me, my friends, and our parents had just arrived at the best Italian restaurant in our area. The service was really slow, due to how many people were arriving for the dinner rush. There's a playground in front of the restaurant, so we tell our parents what we want to order and run out to play. I'm introverted and didn't feel comfortable playing on swings meant for 5-year-olds. But that didn't stop my friends from making a fool of themselves while I sat and watched from a bench a little ways back. There wasn't anyone on the playground but us. So I don't know why I had the feeling something bad was about to happen, but I was right. I look up from my phone to see a woman with a "Can I speak to your manager" haircut walking over to my friends with a very young kid, maybe 3 or 4. I get up and start walking over to see what the problem is, and if I need to get our parents. And that is when the wrath of Karen is unleashed on us. Here's the cast. Lady, friends 1 through 3, me, my mother. Excuse me. My friends ignore her at first because 1, stranger danger, 2, they didn't think she was talking to them. Excuse me. I don't know if they looked up because they finally realized that she was talking to them or because they were just plain nosy. Yes, ma'am. You're disrupting the entire playground, you know? We're sorry. We didn't realize anyone else was here. Well, that doesn't make it okay to... I make it over just in time. Maybe because I was dressed completely different from my friends or the fact I was so tall. Are you there, babysitter? My friends snicker a bit, and friend 3 is crying with internal laughter. As I said, I'm really tall, at least a foot taller than my friends. Lady is just shorter than me. Excuse me? While clapping her hands. Are you there, babysitter? No, I'm... Because if you are, you're doing a terrible job watching over them. They've been disturbing the entire playground. At this point, I'm terrified and kinda annoyed at the same time. My social anxiety kicks in, and I just go quiet. Lady goes off on a rant at me about how I'm meant to take care of kids and how she's going to get me fired if I don't take them off the playground. My mom hears the commotion and walks over. I'm sorry, but is there a problem here? Lady finally realizes that I'm not the babysitter and that now she's got a mama bird in front of her. My mom was shorter than her, but definitely intimidating. Lady just walked away as red as a tomato from embarrassment. We never saw her again. This story's called I Don't Work Here, but We Are All in the Same Century. I've been sitting on this for a few months because I was having trouble shortening it, but it still annoys me, so... For those who don't know, the Amish don't use modern technology, but it varies by sect. Some have phones, some even drive cars. I know you can find some with faults, puppy mills are a problem, but most are the friendliest, kindest people you'd ever meet if you are English, as they call us. There is an Amish-owned bulk health food store near me. The kind of place where you can get things like 5 pounds of good quality instant oats for 49 cents a pound, and all sorts of specialty flours, nuts, seeds, and so on. The family that owns it has no electricity. Lighting is skylights supplemented with propane lights when needed, coolers run on propane, and so do the registers. Also, for various reasons, they don't take credit cards, and there are multiple signs. Cash or check only, on the entry doors and around the registers. This is important later. So here I am on a major stocking up trip to the store dressed in ripped jeans and a flannel shirt. I brought my mother so she can get a few things. In walks entitled Shopper. And how she found this place that's on back roads in the middle of farm country, I don't know. In her defense, I had left my mother with my carts and my purse in a chair by a small shelf of cookbooks. And I was down on the floor moving bags of flour around looking for the largest size I can get. Excuse me? Excuse me? Don't they have any coffee in here? And where are the dolls? Sorry, what? Coffee! Where's the coffee? And why can't I find any dolls? And those other homemade things? Well, coffee is 2 aisles down on your right, and they don't sell dolls or crafts here. What do you mean? Of course they do. That's how these people make their money. It's all they know how to do.
Now show me where the coffee is and we'll need to-go cups.
It finally hits me that she wasn't just asking the first person she saw, but she thinks I'm an employee. I don't work here, I'm shopping like you. And this is a grocery store, not a tourist shop. They don't sell hot coffee or crafty things. This is when it gets weird and I get a little angry.
Of course you work here, you're stocking the shelves. Besides, these people always have someone like you around to help them.
What?
You know, someone who's not so,
She waves her hands like she's searching for a word, then lowers her voice sort of conspiratorially.
backwoods. Someone normal who actually lives in this century.
And she gives a snide little laugh like she made some original joke. Okay, so here is where I wanted to yell at this woman and tell her exactly where to stick her opinions, but I realize I can't because I really don't want any of the owners or actual employees to hear what she's saying about them. And I am extremely thankful no Amish shoppers have come down the aisle during this. Ma'am, this business is fully Amish owned and run, and I can promise you they're very capable, probably better at it than you and I, put together. They don't need or want anyone to interpret for them. I still don't work here though, and it sounds like this isn't the store for you, so maybe you should just move on and find some tourist trap to buy your crappy souvenirs at. I got lucky here. Entitled Shopper took a deep breath like she was gearing up for a major hissy fit when my mother comes up with a half-full cart and says,
Did you find the flour yet? I'm done with the cookbooks and we need to be home by 2 p.m.
I stand up and say, Got it, Mom. Found, I forget exactly, but this many pounds and that many pounds in separate bags. They don't seem to have one large bag, so this will have to do. I lug the bags into the cart, say excuse me to the entitled shopper, and hightail it to the next aisle. Very grateful she just stood there, apparently trying to figure out if she was wrong and I was actually shopper, or did I just bring my mommy to work with me? All I said to my mother was, I'll tell you in the car. Not the most explosive story, no fights, no police involvement, just quietly tried to put her in her place. But here's where some wonderful karma comes in. We were delayed checking out when we asked about specialty salt. They only had small, quarter and half-pound bags on the shelf, but said a shipment had just come in and they'd pack us a larger bag if we didn't mind waiting. Here comes entitled shopper and her husband, or boyfriend? I guess they found their souvenirs, because everyone seems to buy these when they visit. They had a couple of shoe fly pies, plus a loaf of fresh bread, and 2 sodas from the cooler. Entitled sister tried to pay by credit card, and the cashier said,
We don't take card, but I can hold your items if you need to go get cash.
And I had the biggest poo-eating grin on my face hearing the so-called backwards Amish cashiers tell her exactly where to find 2 nearby banks that had ATMs, the names of the banks, and which one they recommended because the fees were lower if you weren't a customer. And I have to admit, I rubbed it in just a little. Just then, they came back with my salt, and instead of just thank you, I threw in, You are always so helpful. I really appreciate shopping here and how you run your business. It sounded over the top, but I said it just a little more loudly than I needed to, and I'm pretty sure I saw entitled shopper twitch a bit. We had to leave then, so I don't know if she paid cash or just skipped the pies and drinks. So personally, I don't really have any experience with Amish people. However, I did know one Amish guy, okay? When my family owned a small motel in Colorado, there was this guy, this Amish guy. His name was John Yoder, I believe. And I had remembered in class, we learned about the Supreme Court case, Yoder versus whatever the hell. And the Yoder guy was Amish, so I remember being in class, like, completely dumbstruck because I was like, wait a gosh dim a darn second, are they related? I don't know, I was crazy.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.